Hello, this is Stuart Nachbar with Educated Quest. With me today is Dr. Mark Salisbury, founder of Tuition Fit, a web-based service that you definitely want to know about, based in Davenport, Iowa, which is in Mark's background over there.
Right.
And Mark was formerly the director of institutional research at Augustana College in Illinois or South Dakota.
No, it's Rock Island, Illinois. So um, it's the same people that started it, though. The same Lutherans moved across the state of Iowa after they must have thought they got it wrong the first time. So they started over on the other side of the state.
Mark, how did you transition from being a director of institutional research to starting Tuition Fit?
Well, I've been doing the institutional research work for 7, 8 years. And I've been somebody in my professional career who, about 7 years in, you start to get the itch to do something different. And I had been thinking about just this particular problem of price transparency in higher ed. And for a long time, it'd been pretty obvious that for the public, this is a source of extreme frustration and really has some pretty serious consequences for students and families in going to college or not going to college. But over the past 5 or 6 years, it really became clear that this transparency problem was also strangling a host of small colleges and universities across the country, in that they have a high sticker price. That sticker price scares away a lot of applicants. And then those schools can't ever offer the price they actually would offer, which is 65, 70% off of that sticker price. And those schools are now not able to get enough students. And so it just seemed to me that if we've got a system in place that is harming both sides of this transaction, then we really ought to figure out a way to change it. And so, it might seem a little arrogant, but I tried to change it. So I just said, well, I don't know if anyone else is going to do this, so I'll go for it.
How does Tuition Fit work for a high school junior, a high school senior, a transfer student who is in college who might be changing schools?
So Tuition Fit's based on the idea that we should be able to see the prices that other students are being asked to pay, and to use that as a mechanism to sort of decide if a school is going to be in our price range or not. A lot of the instruments that are out there currently are about predicting your price. And predictions are kind of fool's gold in a way, because the very best you can get is that, yes, in fact, this school is too expensive for you because it's right. Otherwise, if it's wrong, you've already made a whole bunch of choices that get you in a lot of trouble, right? You've eliminated schools that might have been a good possibility. So Tuition Fit's based on the idea we should be able to see what other people are being asked to pay for school. So for a high school junior, somebody who's really still trying to figure out what their list of schools is that they're going to dig deeper into. And a lot of families have said this to me, that the worst thing that they go through is spend a whole bunch of time looking into a school, go visit that campus, spend money on the application, and then 4 or 5 months later they get in, only to find out that the price tag's over the moon, and all that money and time spent looking at that school turns out to be a waste, because it really wasn't a viable option for them. So with a family who's got a high school junior who's starting the college search and trying to come up with that list of schools they're going to dig deeper into, they can go to Tuition Fit and for free simply get a list of schools that were in the price range they're looking at for students just like them just this last year. And it really takes all of the mystery about whether this school is going to be affordable or not out of the picture. And it gives the students and the families some certainty about which schools are really going to fit their price range and which schools are worth diving deeper into. For a high school senior, once they start getting applications in and then acceptance letters and financial aid offers back, students can upload upload those award letters to Tuition Fit, and immediately start to see the offers that other students just like them are receiving from whatever other schools they've received them from in real time. And that becomes really valuable as you start to evaluate, is this a decent offer? Is it not a good offer? And is there information I can use to negotiate a better price? Now, for transfer students, you can also use Tuition Fit. We've got a lot of students that are moving from 2-year school to a 4-year school, and they plug in their college GPA instead of their high school GPA and indicate they're a transfer student. And so we can show them the prices that other students like them are receiving as transfer students, as well as other students like them who are intending to go to that same 4-year institution.
So when they log into Tuition Fit and they open an account, what is the search? How do they search for the schools that might have the prices they're looking for?
So we're really taking a different approach than searching for schools first. Traditionally, what we've done in the college search world is say, find the schools you think you should look at, and then we'll figure out how to pay for it. What we're trying to suggest is another way to come at this is start with your price range, and then here are schools that will be in that price range. So for a student to engage Tuition Fit, what they enter is they plug in some very basic demographic information, and then they'll plug in their high school GPA. They'll plug in a test score if they've got one, which until this year was a pretty reasonable thing, and now maybe not anymore. And then they'll plug in an estimated EFC, expected family contribution, that obviously when you fill out the FAFSA, you get one of those, but you can use one of the many EFC estimators that are out there to come up with what's your estimated EFC. EFC then works as a proxy for financial status, for that family's financial status, and test score and high school GPA work as a proxy for academic merit. And college pricing is organized on those two spectrums. So once you know those informations, then I can identify other students in the system who have the similar EFC and a similar high school GPA, and then see whatever prices are those students getting from whatever colleges they got them from. It may not be that we have every single college in the country in your particular category, but that's actually not our goal. Our goal is more to be able to show you this is the range of prices that students are getting. Now you can put whatever assessments you're bringing to the table, or maybe whatever offers you've already received in that context.
Okay. So if you, so either the users should use an EFC tool like the FAFSA forecaster or the College Board's tool. Mm-hmm. Could they also put in the number that say, this is what mom and dad told me they're going to give me for college?
Well, that's not exactly the same thing as an EFC.
Exactly.
And that would put the student in a difficult spot, because that might very well put them in an entirely different category than what the institution would assess them at. So institutions use EFC to determine where you sit on a financial status. And so you can have a student that mom and dad says, we're not paying for anything, but the federal government says, okay, your EFC is $50,000. Well, unfortunately for that student, they're in a difficult spot, because the school is going to assess them as a family with an EFC of 50,000, even if the parents are saying you're on your own. So it really is important to figure out what that EFC is, so that you're comparing apples to apples.
So they should do that first before they open an account.
Yes, they'll need to do that before they open an account, because they'll need to plug in an EFC in order to be categorized and sort of organized like by like.
I mentioned the FAFSA forecaster, which the federal government has, and I
Hmm.
mentioned what the College Board has, and I certainly will link to those for the audience. Are there any other forecasting tools out there that you're aware of that people should know about to help them?
I have seen probably 50 of them.
Okay.
Some of them are built into different platforms that already exist. Some of them are very much look like an Excel spreadsheet and can be kind of overwhelming. And then some of them are really, really simple. There's one called Easy EFC, and I think I can find the link to that. I can send that to you if you'd like.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and the thing I like about that one is that it treats you like a human being that's not supposed to know everything ahead of time. And it just asks you each question in full sentences with good definitions so you can answer them or you know where to go to find the answer to that. There's another one that's at finaid.org that's really simple. The, the trade-off is the simpler the EFC estimator, the more likely that they might be off by several $1,000s. And obviously, if they're off by several $1,000s, then when you actually do the FAFSA, you get a different number than you thought. Things go a little bit haywire. So it kind of depends on how precise you need it to be. Um, and if you're a family that's making, I mean, this is part of the problem too, is you're in an area of the country where cost of living is quite high, right? And so you can be making $250,000 a year, and 99% of that money is getting sucked up in cost of living things that you don't have as much control over. If you're out here in lovely Davenport, Iowa, between the cornfields and the soybeans, that $250,000 goes a long way. And nothing in the FAFSA accounts for cost of living. So it is pretty important to actually use an estimator that's a more substantial than less substantial um, estimator, especially when you need to know those numbers more precisely.
You're on your second full admission cycle,
Yes.
right? And how many users has Tuition Fit attracted from the people seeking a school to the schools that actually there's at least one award letter?
Well, we had a in the second half of the admission cycle of 1819 is when we launched this and we sort of tested this out. And we had maybe 500 students try it. And it was just sort of a beta test to see if people would share stuff. And then we got this big bump in the summer of people thinking, you know what, I really do want to see if the prices I got are a decent price. And then this next cycle, we had over 6,000 users sign up onto the site, and just explode by a tenfold margin. This next year, we're already seeing users signing up daily because they're just looking for comparison information. At this point, we have a little over 7,000 award letters in the system. We are receiving more award letters daily, and they're coming in from folks who started their application process last year, started college just a month ago, and they're saying, oh, we didn't know you existed, but here, have some more data so you can share it with other people. Because man, if I'd have known that you were around when I went through this, I would have used you too. So the amount of data is sort of growing quickly, and it's pretty exciting to see.
How do you think some of the changes in this cycle will affect the information that's available? Things like schools going test optional, different schools will have different decision-making cycles. Princeton just dropped restrictive early action for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And there are also schools that are going to be more popular and obviously schools that will be less popular.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see, in some ways, I think we're going to see a rearranging of the chairs on the Titanic, and the Titanic being sort of the unsustainability of the higher ed model generally. But I think that we're going to see all kinds of colleges trying different things that they haven't done before. either removing some of the early decision, early action things that they had in place, or adding them and trying to get more students in their early decision cycle because there's just more certainty in that. We saw all kinds of schools in just this last cycle that sent a letter to a student in February and then sent another award in April and then sent another award in June, with each time with $1,500 or $2,000 more in their award package, so that their discount rates really went through the roof. I don't know that those schools can continue that discount rate in this next cycle. But then again, the colleges are a lot like the restaurant business. They make all their money off of one thing. And if people don't show up, you never get a chance to upsell them for dessert. So you really run into you got to get the students on campus somehow.
What about a school like the University of Iowa? Iowa's a little different from Rutgers because they take students like almost through the summer before the start of a freshman year. Iowa State, I think, does the same thing as well.
Yeah, there are hundreds of schools in the Midwest where, and I know there are schools like this in the Northeast too, where May 1st doesn't mean anything. You're still looking for students all the way through August. And you just are, because either you didn't make your class, you didn't get close to making your class in the spring, or your financial model is built sort of like a big box store model, where you just need as many students as you can get in the freshman year. You'll put them in closets and lounges in the residence halls, but you make money on sophomore, junior, senior year, and you don't make anything on the freshman year. Freshman year is a loss leader, but you can't make the money on them at all if you don't get them in the door to begin with. So there's a whole lot of schools in the Midwest where it's just not anything like that stereotype of the way it used to be, or the way that we sort of see in the public press about the more selective schools and May 1st being a big deal. It's just not that way out here.
Do you see situations where students, log in, they've deposited at a school, they come to your site and they say, oh my God, I could have, if I'd chosen that college, I might have been a little bit better off cost-wise. Then they decommit from the college they chose to commit to another one?
I don't know if that happens or not. We're not really trying to pay close tabs on every student all the way through their decision process. What we try to do is to say to students that honesty matters. And if you're going to make a decision with a place, then you better be straight with them. But we certainly see students logging onto the site all the way through the summer, sharing award letters, seeing other data, and we hear stories from them about them using that data to maybe get a better price from the school they've already decided to go to, or conversely, just feeling a lot better about the school they chose. Because that's the other side of this equation too, is there's a lot of times where students, they just don't know what else was out there, and so they're uncertain, just as a function of that general fog. And then they see that, the price I'm paying it's actually a pretty fair price. I feel a lot better now about the school that I'm going to. Feel a lot more confident that it's the right financial fit. And that, I think, can have a pretty important effect on retention, because way too often students who don't know what they don't know, and they know that they're paying a lot, something's gonna go wrong in your first year somewhere. And if you already have a sort of uncertainty about a place, when something goes wrong, that uncertainty just got a megaphone, right? And now it's like, well, yeah, see, told you this is not the right fit, and it's too expensive, and you should go somewhere else. But if a family knows this is a good fit and it's the right price, well, maybe you're just a little bit more likely to stick it out.
Do you think that colleges that made decisions to go virtual this year, that they're going and virtual meaning no one comes to campus, or you might live on campus, or you might live near campus, but you don't take classes there, you don't use the buildings? Do you think those past decisions are going to come to haunt some of these schools when decision day comes for a new group of freshmen, a new group of transfer students?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think it's too early to tell. I really think it's there are so many examples of institutions that have had so many different results um, so far. Institutions that planned and planned and planned and planned, and then they had a COVID outbreak on campus. And other institutions, smaller institutions that seem to be managing this just fine and not having a whole lot of issues. Um, I think there's so much possibility that other things are going to blow up in the winter, and some schools are going who haven't had COVID outbreaks are going to have one. I mean, it's hard to say at this point. There's just so much uncertainty, and it does make it just a real mess for institutions trying to make decisions.
The one thing I've noticed is a smaller school can sometimes maintain community
Mm-hmm.
and get people to at least, if you have to distance or you have to quarantine or you have to be tested, they can kind of control it a little better than a very large school can.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think at a small school, you really can have that look right in the eyes of the students and say, this really matters and here's why. And when you're, running orientation for 4,000 freshmen versus 400 freshmen, um, it's a lot easier to just be sort of talking to a mass of people and have a larger proportion of that mass of people just sort of rolling their eyes and just doing whatever they got to do, and not really grasping the importance of that community.
Because I'm wondering if you're going to see some surprise winners in this cycle, some school that is not is small, they have some unique offerings or they have majors people want, and they were able to control things.
One of the things that's been really interesting here, right next door in Illinois. So in Illinois, the four sort of location-based directional regional publics, Northern Illinois, Western, Eastern, Southern, have been just in the worst trouble for a decade in terms of enrollment. Just enrollment numbers plummeting by 2-digit percentage points. And all four of them had increases in undergraduate enrollment this year in their freshmen coming in. And I think a lot of that, even though some of them are online, I think a lot of that had to do with they're reasonably close, they're reasonably inexpensive. The kids who were in the Chicago suburbs who had been thinking about going halfway across the country had second thoughts, said, yeah, if we're going to do this online anyway, I might as well do it at a place that's less expensive. And if it does open up, it's closer to home. So if something comes up, I can get back home quickly. And they opted for those institutions instead. And I think there'll be a number of those kids who say, you know what, this turned out fine. I'm not going to go and transfer back to that bigger name institution out on one of the two coasts. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to be fine. So I do think that you're right. I think there are going to be some interesting winners that come out of this on the other side.
This is my last question. How have the colleges reacted to tuition fit?
It's been really interesting. So colleges sort of fall into one of three camps. One camp is the really selective, very sort of traditionally prestigious brand name institution, Ivy League institution. They've said, we love transparency, pat me on the head, and fine, and that's it. Tuition fit, what we're doing doesn't matter to them. The bottom 80% of colleges and universities, the ones that have at least once or twice in the last couple of years missed enrollment badly, the ones whose discount rates just keep going up, they can't seem to manage that, keep that down. They're just really up against the far edges of this business model. And they're recognizing that that funnel mindset of just send every kid on the planet a brochure and then hope that you'll get enough students, that's just not working. Many of them have said, you know what, we really like this idea. It's crazy compared to what we've been doing now, but we actually really like it because our best selling point is our actual price. But we don't get to tell anybody if they don't apply. And they don't apply because they see this crazy high sticker price. And we should change it, but then somebody on the board says, well, yeah, but price equates with quality, and they get hung. So a lot of those schools see the value in tuition. Transparency in pricing is better for a marketplace. And then there's that small slice in the middle of schools that have tried to sort of make their name on, hey, we live across the street from the really prestigious golf club, so we're kind of a part of it, and you should pay more just to be here. And the public has just said, I'm not so sure I buy that anymore. But they've sort of built their name on being the next door neighbor to the fancy place. They're not so crazy about what we're doing.
Do you think maybe a school, and I'm thinking, because I went to grad school in Illinois for a brief time. Let's say you have a school like a Cornell College in Iowa that
Mm-hmm.
that has staked out a little bit of reputation for its academics. Grinnell, which is more selective.
Mm-hmm.
A school like Lake Forest outside Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you see these schools maybe trying to do a little micro targeting and think, New Jersey's a pretty fertile market for students who don't want to go to college in their state? Should we go use these tools to kind of target people from elsewhere and sell them and show them what we have to offer and tell them, look, you're going to pay less than you might to go to the equivalent school in New England or the equivalent school in mid-Atlantic states like New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way that Tuition Fit's designed is it's really trying to push back against all of the tools that are already out there in the enrollment management industrial complex that are about, get them into your funnel at the beginning and then solicit them and blah, blah, blah. Because what we've been trying to say is that, in fact, this thing is just flipped on its head and we need to do it differently. And so I think that those institutions, they see Tuition Fit and they're sort of leery about what we are, but I think they're the very institutions that really could use what we're doing to find students who have sort of prematurely narrowed their list and then found out that it's way too expensive to go to the schools that they thought they liked. Where else should I go? I don't know. And it's almost like there's two haystacks that are looking for the needle in the others. And there's no way right now for them to find each other.
Mark, thank you for spending this time with me. If people are interested, they should just go to tuitionfit.com?
They should go to tuitionfit.org. .org, or they can email me at mark@tuitionfit.org.
Mark, thank you again. This is Stuart Nachbar from Educated Quest with Dr. Mark Salisbury, the founder of Tuition Fit. This is a very worthwhile tool, and it helps you know your price.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good day.